Never Again, posted by u/Marian Cartographer over on r/HFY. Saltpator was a strange watering hole. It was a city of modest size when compared to the standard in the Galactic Union. The system had only one planet that could hold life as the Union knew it. And it was devoid of any useful resources. Yeah, there was some iron, some ice, but nothing noteworthy. Life on the planet was scarce and hard. The folk barely got by with their farming, just enough to keep on living, but not truly being alive. Its only use was that it was right in the middle of the shortest route between two large trade hubs. Saltpator was a glorified dingy highway stop, but that meant it had got a starport, and was frequented by many species of the Union. At first, it was nothing more than a starport with some warehouses, mostly ignored by the locals. But not all species in the Union are as fond of each other. Fights broke out, quite often. So the powers that were, which were mostly trade conglomerates, decided Saltpator needed some security and supervision. So guards and an overseer were assigned. Over the years, Saltpator grew bigger, busier. And while there was an overseer, they were not an extension of Union law. They merely saw to it that no violence occurred. That is, no violence deemed unprofitable. This turned Saltpator into a safe haven of black market dealings, tucked away neatly outside Union jurisdiction. Slave trade, organ trade, solvent meat trade, all flourished through Saltpator, along with more legal markets. "Spare me the history lesson, Slit," Mark said. Both his hands tucked behind his belt, close enough to his gun hanging from his hip to feel at ease. "I didn't ask for any of it, and I already know it. This is a shithole overlooked because it makes more sense to have it than not." "Vekath!" Opsilon spat the words in common. Their shoulders shivered in anger at the slur. They knew what the humans thought of their peculiar facial makeup. The large slit that held their one eye and their version of a mouth. What was perfection and beauty to Ablith was disgusting to the humans. Another reason to ignore them. Then you understand that you have no claim to make here. Move on. I have no wish to deal with your kind today. Opsilon started to turn away, their large shoulder that sat next to their head already obscuring the humans from view, when they heard him speak again. "See, that's where you're wrong. I made no claim, Slit. Not even a request. I made a demand," Mark hissed. The others behind him showed no sign of stress, standing at attention. They were no Terran Marines, but serving as a frontier runner for a few years made you just as disciplined as one. You didn't last if you weren't. "I get that you slits are one of the slower species, but a demand is a thing you don't say no to." "Do you mock me? Your inferior species only joined the Union 100 years ago. We've been a member for over 1,000. We have a seat at the Council for over 250 galactic years. You are in no place to make demands, rat." Opsilon roared in anger, as they turned their large body around. Their forelegs tapping the dusty ground of Saltpator in quick pats. Their rigid backs meant they had virtually no flexibility around their vertical axis. Lumbering hulks, the humans often called them. Some humans snickered at seeing Opsilon move, which angered them even more. "See, I don't care about anything what you just said, Ocelot." "Opsilon, first of my line." Yeah. What I do care about, though, is that." Mark said, pointing to Upsilon's 2 crewmates and their merchandise. A dozen Sarani slaves, freshly plucked from one of their colonies. My trade is none of your concern. It is when your trade is people. They are not people. They are Vekrai. Upsilon sneered, clearly amused by the humans' lack of knowledge. They are not protected by Union law. You should make sure you know your stuff before you talk, human. I don't care an awful lot for Union law currently, though seeing where we are, Mark said, waving his hand around, motioning at Saltpator. As you said yourself, Union law doesn't reach this far. I am growing tired of your ceaseless yapping, rat. I haven't... Mark cut Upsilon off. The only real law is this. Mark patted the gun at his hip. And making sure to not make a loss for the Overseer. Mark grins widened. And as you are trading under the flag of Aboleth Ascendancy, which we all know does not pay tax, that means you are of, well, no value to the Overseer. Mark paused for a moment, letting it sink in. The Aboleth really were one of the slower thinking species after all. Which means I can use this. Mark grabbed the gun, holding the pistol, not really aiming it, to make a hole in you, and no guard will even look up from their game or drink. Tell me, Upsilon, is that how you want your line to end? The way that Mark said his words made it very clear to the Aboleth in front of him that he understood perfectly the way lineages worked for the Aboleth, and the weight Upsilon carried with him, being the first of his line. You wouldn't dare. My line would never stop hunting you. Hunt me how? In Union space, they can't do a thing against the law. And here? Well, humans always pay their dues. The Overseer likes to see us pass through. So niet. Hoping to catch us between star jumps? Last I checked, the average Aboleth vessel is easily outperformed by my frontier cutter. Mark smiled, tucking the gun away. So, unless your lineage is important enough to charter a Aboleth cruiser, I think you should be a good slit and do what I asked. Upsilon's shoulders vibrated violently now. They were angry, enraged. But the rat spoke true. There was little Upsilon could do to refute humans' logic. So, without turning, they spoke to the 2 others in High Abolethese. Prepare on my sign. Shoot them. I will take the leader. Abvalent, you take the one on the left, and then the next one. Osoto, you take the one on the right. Very well, Upsilon said to Mark back in common. As you please. I will release the Asarai. Upsilon turned around, turning their back to the humans. Now out of view, they started to pull the gun from their belly-mounted holster. Their one eye moving from one crew member to the other, making sure they were ready. But know this, human. This is our Upsilon was cut short, because his words turned into a loud shriek. As they had turned around, Mark had pulled out his gun, and shot Upsilon square in the back. A hole burned through Upsilon's body now, between the lowest point of their shoulders, opening up just below their head. Upsilon gurgled, purple blood gushing out of the seared wound. Then their body collapsed. You old Union scum always treat us like incompetent fools. As if we can't do anything. As if we don't know anything. It will be the death of you all one day, I am sure, Mark said, in almost perfect, fluent High Abolethese. Abvalent and Osodo looked in surprise and horror, their hands still on the butts of their rifles, not yet drawn. You speak the High tongue, Osodo managed to bring out. Of course I do, Slit. Most humans working in this part of space do. You are so fucking annoying that we have to. Now, will you do what I asked, or will your line end too? The two remaining Aboleth were clearly angry, at the death of their superior, at the foul language Mark had used in their holy language, but overall at being bested by a, in their eyes, lesser species. They shook their shoulders, then let go of the butts of their rifles, and then they simply left, not even undoing the Maclock bindings on the Asarai. As Mark and the others were busy breaking the Maclock bonds, an Aboleth ship roared from the starport. Thank you 1,000 times, Master. The oldest and most frail Asarai spoke to Mark, as he broke the last of the Maclocks. Don't call me Master. The name is Mark, and you don't have to thank me. This is just something we do, something we promised ourselves. I think I don't understand, the Asarai said. None of the other species would help us. We have nothing to offer you. You have nothing to gain from doing this. We do gain something by doing this. We don't break our promise. We saw this all before, Mark gestured at the scene. We did it to ourselves. Often, again and again. Abusing and enslaving. And then we grew, and we said, never again. Not with us, not with you, not with anybody. Mark walked over to the Aboleth corpse. That is powerful, the Asarai finally said. Your species, it is strong. To say such things, to live by it. I admire you. Can the likes of us join the likes of you? Sure, we'll welcome anybody, as long as you can carry yourself and abide by our rules. Of course, we will never forget this. You saved us. We can never repay you. Hey, stop it. You will repay us by living a full life, and by stepping up when you see something like this happen. Besides, Mark grinned as he pulled out his knife. It's not like this was worthless. We did gain something. Mark groaned as he cut into the lower abdomen of the corpse. After a few strenuous moments, he pulled out a Vladik, a sort of special organ akin to a liver the Aboleth had. This one had a big one. Has to be worth... Mark weighed it in his hands, purple blood staining his skin. He could already feel it starting to sting. 10,000 credits? More if we take it all the way back to the Southern Rim systems? The Asarai were filled with horror from the scene, seeing their savior so casually desecrating the corpse of their tyrant. Yet, nothing Mark did that day would make the Asarai feel any less grateful or emboldened. Never again. All 12 of them lived by those words after that day, joining a human colony not too far away, setting up an organization years later that focuses on helping and saving other Asarai from slavery. Even turning into a pseudo-pirate group that assaulted the ships of the Aboleth and other species that killed and enslaved others, pushing eradicating slavery almost entirely from the Salvatore local region. And every ship in their fleet would show the words on their hull, never again.